So I was just listening to Barack Obama talk to, I believe it was Bright. I'm not sure. So let's just say I believe it was BTC on YouTube. Um, and wow, man, Obama's so articulate. He's so thoughtful. I missed that. I didn't vote for Obama. I'm actually from Chicago, but I didn't vote for Obama. Now, Obama mentioned something that set off a chain reaction in my brain. He said something about the planet roasting. And, you know, I've been a conservative my whole life, my whole adult life, my whole life, because I was always into the Bible so deeply. I was reading the Bible. I'm autistic with ADHD, and I'm from Chicago, actually, the South Side. And I just read the Bible voraciously since I was my first read, and I read quick, early, as a toddler. But anyway, Obama talked about the planet roasting. Now, I, from the South Side, from the poor part, ended up going to jail, um, but I read a lot, studied a lot. And even in jail, I got locked up here in Texas. I'm in Texas now. While in Texas, George W. Bush was the president. Compassionate conservatism was their motto. That was the equivalency to MAGA, but they didn't throw that motto all the time. It almost got laughed at by the media because they was like, this guy, he's so tough on crime in Texas, he ain't gonna show compassion. But Bush had these programs. And what we need to do to save the planet from global warming is do something that will affect things so much on the economic and the labor side of things. The way we fixed the ozone layer is the way it needs to be thought of for more markets, for more parts and corners of the economic market. The way we fixed the ozone layer, you trained people, you outlawed CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. I know this because, again, because of George W. Bush's program, I ended up going to prison in Texas down here, and they had a Project Reintegration of Offender. Reintegration of offenders. Now, this is something I've been mad at the MAGA party ratting on my channel, almost shouting into the desert. Nobody watches my stuff. But this is a big idea. This is a important idea. Hopefully somebody listens to this. Because while in prison, part of Project Rio, some of the education I got in prison, I got a lot of education down here in Texas. I dropped out of school, but really my brain was a little bit too fast for school. I was a little bit too hyperactive for school and class and too much of a distraction for everybody else. Learning was nothing for me. The other kids, literally, some of the kids I went to would smack themselves on the head while they took tests, like, and it wasn't just one or two guys. And I'm supposed to be the special ed guy. But anyway, because of Project Rio, I got educated. First, I got a CDA. Well, first, I got in construction and just was, to pay back my debt to society, they first threw me in something in San Antonio. I caught my cases and crimes in San Antonio. And I was not like puffy or nothing like that. I wasn't a creep. I wasn't in the Epstein files. I was the type of teenager they didn't want at the Epstein files. Because I'm about that age, they was going after my classmates. And I was the kind of young guy, I didn't like it. I was a different kind of conservative. Underhand that young lady, How dare you put your hands on the damsel in distress? That girl over there, because I was in the hood, so, protective of the hood rats. Anyway, back to the economic and the what would you say for labor markets? Because it's connected to economics, but the labor market is what really happened. So I worked in construction. They threw me in something called the restitution center. I had to pay restitution. This was many years ago. This was back in the 1900s. Black don't crack. Some of these silly guys around here be saying brown don't frown. Or really, brown don't brown. Anyway, that was too goofy. That's why I went away. But back to the economics. So the way we fixed the ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer. So the first thing I did, I went to the restitution center. When I first got out from my felony that I got convicted of as a teenager, got out on probation, had to go to the restitution center. From jail, when I finally got released from jail, first step is this restitution center. Tomorrow, you're going to get to actually leave here. We're going to give you bus passes. You're going to get to go into San Antonio, look for a job. Got a job pretty quick working in construction. I always had like a little Napoleon complex. I look in the mirror, I see the little skinny kid. And I was skinny, but I was like real skinny and muscular. So they hired me quick for the construction stuff. Willing to work in the San Antonio sun, we got you. They had me. Believe it or not, I'm actually pretty tan compared to what I used to be. Spend a lot of time in the sun. But worked a lot here. They would actually send me to Austin a lot to do a lot of construction work, especially when I got into painting. We'll come here and paint this city. But paint all kind of stuff. But this was back in my teenage, early 20 years. Well, it did start, this was my teenage years. Yeah, I was 19 years old when I started working in construction, doing all that stuff. And so 19, 20, doing all that, violate my probation, go back to jail. And every time I go to jail, I'm in San Antonio, the heart of this Project Rio stuff. And I don't know if it's because my name is Diego and I'm black. I'm always black on all my paperwork. So they probably figured, man, we got two minorities. Throw him in there and say you got a black and a Latino. I'm joking, hopefully. Hopefully that's not what they was doing. But I was getting all these programs. Culinary arts, some computer certificates. These are little minor certifications. Probably a lot of little religious arts things that we could probably count a few. And theology studies and different religious certifications and, classes and stuff like that. Get out, more construction, different types of construction, working as a helper, working at tip agencies and stuff like that. Unloading all kind of stuff, man. Working at Pace County factory. No more telemarketing. I did the telemarketing in my early teenage years. But anyway, this is important for the story to understand how I got this information that I'm going to tell you, and that you understand I ain't bushing. Get out. Somewhere in there, I go to trucking school. I get all these certificates, and finally some things happen in my life. I get to turn some knobs, and I end up getting sponsored to go to this trucking school with Project Rio. Project Rio and Texas Rehabilitation Commission. And put some grants together and stuff and got sent to trucking school right outside of Dallas. And complete that real easy. Not really. I failed my first exam. She was real hard on me for some reason, but I went first. They had me go first because I did so good at the trucking school. Failed a couple days, bam, bam. But I got my CDL right away. Like, you're supposed to graduate in 3 weeks. I graduated in 3 weeks. Got my CDL, came back to San Antonio, struggled, had to get a job. And my job was bad because I was on parole for robbing my company that I worked for. They fired me, and I came back and stuck them up. This is a teenager. It was the 90s. Everybody was doing it in the 90s, trust me. Especially in San Antonio. Seriously, the numbers is crazy. We're talking about like hundreds of thousands of teenagers robbing people. Or whatever, hundreds of thousands of robberies. Not just teenagers, it wasn't just teenagers. Everybody was doing it. It was the 90s, man. Something was wrong. Something was in the water in the 90s. Y'all be talking about making America great again. We might see this again, and it's going to happen. Some bad economic stuff is going to happen, but we could cure it if we do try to cure the planet with some things like what I'm about to talk about now. So I drive these trucks for years, and I'm doing the grunt work because I'm on parole. So my first job was with the Salvation Army, working with all these homeless people and all this poverty and collecting donations and all this stuff and going all over San Antonio and the surrounding areas. Lots of counties around it. And at this time, San Antonio was exploding in population. It's going from, at the time, it's probably like the 30th most populated city in America. Boom, it's going to be in the top 20 really soon. Boom, it's going to be in the top 10 soon. And I'm building the city as an ex-convict, working real hard. All these temp agency jobs, get this trucking license and working all these shitty trucking jobs that nobody wants, moving companies, hardest things to do in 100+ degree weather, and moving vans, all kinds of stuff, working in the back of them, but I'm the driver, so you got to do both. And other rough jobs, landfill. Now, working at the landfill, I worked at the landfill for 2 years. garbage companies. I'm driving a garbage truck, and you go to the landfill every day. And then finally I get at the main company who owns the landfill, and we're converting landfill gas. There's something called landfill gas. A lot of people don't know this, but in the landfill business, you put a layer of trash and you cover it with rubber. And that rubber is covering all this trash, and this trash is going to ferment a bunch of methane gas. And you got this rubber cover over there, and you collect that gas, and it collects. And every day at the end of the day, they cover with a layer of dirt, and that layer of dirt is contributing to what's going to be this landfill gas, and they just keep doing these layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. But anyway, that's energy production. Energy production. It stinks like hell over there. And as I'm working, picking up dumpsters, and my first job is in the small town Kerrville. They was in the news recently. They had all these floodings. It was horrible tragedies. All these poor little girls. They was from rich families, but poor little rich girls. They all tragically died. A lot of these summer camps were for children. A lot of children out there died recently because of these floods. And the EPA, not the EPA, but one of those federal commissions was defunded. The FEMA, the Federal Department of Emergency Disaster or something. I've done FEMA work before. Worked in hurricanes and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm working in the garbage truck company, learning about energy. And I was in jail because of my ADHD and my autism. I used to just read. And I would become obsessed with all these different subjects. One of them was the Civil War. I got into that early. As a trucker, I'm getting all these books about the Civil War. That's why I know so much about history and Civil War and presidents and all this stuff. But anyway, I'm reading. And a lot of this stuff, as I'm getting into all these trades, I'm reading about trucking and all the different types of trucking, getting about gas and learning about electricity. And I was always fascinated with electricity and energy and stuff like that. And solar panels, I was always fascinated. Even as a little boy, I was just like, why aren't solar panels everywhere? And they should be. They should be part of the road system. There should be solar powers fueling the grids everywhere, every day. Batteries. Should start learning more and more about batteries. America's so behind on batteries. It's disgusting. And we're always worried about trying to get precious materials out of Africa to make batteries. Right now, the batteries that they're making contributes to all of this mining and all of these childs. There's slavery in the world because we're mining things to get batteries, lithium, ion, all this stuff. Anyway, on to here in America, our problems with our economics and how we fix the hole in the ozone layer. So anyway, I violate my parole on some lies. It's not like I'm a bad guy. I'm not perfect, but I'm dating a lot of women. I mean, come on, man. I'm 50 right now. I'm a homeless bum, literally. I work, but yeah, lots of women problems. Anyway, I had a woman. I was on parole, and she used to always tell me, if you ever leave me or cheat on me, I'm gonna get your parole violated. She did get my parole violated. Anyway, I left her for another woman, and she made up something about me. I go to prison. While in there, I take HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And this is a lot of people don't respect this trade as much as they should. It takes a lot of knowledge. So I was in this prison class for a year. A whole year I'm in this class. And I'm not just your average dumb criminal, as these MAGA people would paint all criminals. I was actually very smart, too smart for my own good. So I'm about 26, 27 when I get into HVAC. And I'm like I say, I'm not a regular dude. When I took my GED, I dropped out at 16, but I took my GED at 17 and I passed with flying colors. My math scores, I was like in the 93 percentile, top 93%. And I was a kid that ran the streets mostly. One of the last things they said to me as I dropped out of high school, the disciplinary assistant principal, we had two assistant principals at my large high school in San Antonio, and the guy that talked to me on my way out, one of the last things he said to me is, for somebody who never comes to school, you got some amazing grades. And it was. I used to only show up sometimes. And it was funny because I used to hang out with these dudes. We used to hang out in the projects in San Antonio every day. We would meet up. We would eat breakfast at school. We would walk to the projects. We would find some way to smoke reefer. And we would smoke reefer, marijuana, Doty. There wasn't no Doty back then, Reggie. But it was good. We was right close. San Antonio was pretty close to the border. We were smoking some fresh Reggie. But we're adventuring, and you learn a lot of things from interacting in an environment. And when these young men live those lifestyles, they're interacting with people. The guys running the streets, they're literally running the streets, talking to strangers all day, meeting other people, meeting other groups. And they're also talking about economics a lot more than you might think. Again, the movies have it, you think everybody's old dog or Tupac from Juice or something. But actually, some of the most brilliant minds and conversations and things I've learned and done have been with guys in prison. I miss prison sometimes just because it was almost like you would think of, if you think of like Socrates and Plato and these philosophers back in the ancient Greek days that were talking about these amazing ideas. These are the type of conversations at some of these tables in prisons, especially, the chess tables and stuff, like the old men sitting around reading the newspaper and stuff like that. Those tables. The guys that talk to each other, but the other inmates don't talk to them. And when they do, they talk to them very respectfully. But anyway, we have these conversations and we talk about the global things, all kind of things. You got all kind of guys. You ain't got nothing but time in there. So guys nerd out on all kind of things. And these convicts, again, they're not just dumb brutes. A lot of guys have committed horrible crimes or been addicted to committing crimes, but they were brought up in these environments where it was really hard to survive. So they evolved at a higher level than the average person. That's why Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were calling the young minority certain things like super predators. And it's not just, we know that it's not just black and brown and, and white. There's plenty of white in prison. Equal numbers. That's the funny thing when people are like, a lot of things. I had this conversation recently. Somebody was like, "Oh, you're from Chicago," and it came up, and they was like, "Yeah, that's just a black." It was a black dude I was actually, yeah, it was the other day. Black dude I was talking to, and he was just like, "Yeah, it's just too many black people there. Everybody black, that black, black, black." And I'm like, "Bro, actually, Chicago's mostly white. If you go there and you travel around the city and you actually open your eyes, you see, damn, there's a lot of white people there. Outside of certain neighborhoods, like where I'm from, it's a sea of black. If you go to where I'm from, you got to go miles to get away from all black people. But that's rare in America, and that's rare in Chicago. But anyway, those guys on my south side, black people, you have all kind of different black people, and they do all the work over there. Every garbage man is black. Every police officer is black these days. When I was a kid, well, that part of the south side, where I'm from, like around the Robert Taylors, it was always black police officers over there. Even if you did see if you ever saw a white cop, there were black cops there first, or a black cop is going to be his partner. But anyway, back to the gas and electricity and everything. So the way we had trades. So HVAC, they banned CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, and other variations of these chemicals that were destroying the ozone layers. And we studied it more and more and found out more and more chemicals that damaged the hole in the ozone layer. And then you have HVAC. These are the guys, the unsung heroes that people don't know about. A lot of times it's coming up too. I'm hearing it more in the news. People are talking about how we repaired the hole in the ozone layer, and we're pretty sure that the ozone layer is fully intact again. And that's one reason they're talking about it more and more, because they're almost certain that the ozone layer is completely cured. And this was something that we thought by this time. This is one reason that the people who made predictions about, like, for example, An Inconvenient Truth, the documentary that was supposedly produced somehow by Al Gore, that a lot of people made fun of, and South Park recently apologized for making fun of it. But the global warming movie that basically said we would have penguins flown by school buses on icebergs by this time. Half of Texas would be underwater. Well, a lot of that didn't happen. It's getting bad, especially as like hurricane season and all that. But as far as hurricane season and all that, but it's getting bad, but it's only getting bad. It would be way worse. It would be much closer to that movie, An Inconvenient Truth, that documentary. It'd be much closer to that if not for how much the holes in the ozone layer was repaired. And not just that, but other things that the EPA done and that they've done and that they are doing and that the Trump administration is starting to dismantle. The water we have is clean. Not here in Texas. Our Gulf of Mexico is absolutely Gulf of America, as they would call it. But here, the Gulf of Mexico, the water that I done been to, whatever. I haven't been to the coast in a while, so that water, the Gulf over here, but that water's filthy. The Mississippi River empties into it, and it just empties so much sludge into there. But where I'm from in the Midwest, the Great Lakes used to catch on fire. The lakes and the I forget what you call those, not bays, harbors, and all that, but something over there on the East Coast, the water used to catch on fire. There used to be things where water out of the tap would light on fire in certain towns, especially like oil towns. But because the water would get so contaminated, these companies used to dump horrible things in the water. Companies like Dow, ooh, they was notorious, but they was making so much money. You know, it's so funny that you have this anti-Semitism, and they talk about these Jewish people that run the world, when in reality, you have these companies that are other different ethnicities, these European and white ethnicities that have so much power, these powerful companies, Dow, Heinz, Kraft, all these companies that are just superpower. Really, I'm in a truck right now. Where do they make all this plastic? Where do they make this? Everything you see. Who makes sewer lids? You know what I'm saying? Those companies. Those are the ones who make money. And those companies are countless. Thousands of companies like that. But I got little stuff like this. Who makes the plastic bags? Who makes the little, you know? But anyway, just because it says made in China, who really is in control of all those profits? It's hard to find those names once you start dealing with corporations that large. But either way, go back to how we fix this economy by trading up the workforce. Um, so the next trade I got is HVAC, and as I'm in this class, I'm locked up in prison. I ain't going nowhere, and I don't have nothing to do with myself. And if you've seen any of my content, you can imagine I get very annoyed with people who are mentally lazy, and I get annoyed with people who are ignorant on purpose or revel in ignorance or debauchery, or I'm that type of conservative. I'm an anti-MAGA conservative. That's what I call the content on my channel. I'm an anti-MAGA conservative. So when I think of conservative, I do think of like snooty stuff. Chicago, what do you call it? Chicago bourgeoisie. I'm from Chicago, and I was a Chicago street kid, and I bounced around talking to strangers. I used to love talking to homeless dudes, and homeless dudes always was white in America. You know, it's so funny that a lot of people and commentators on the news, they talk about the homeless situation and they talk about the minorities, the black and the brown homeless people and the panhandlers. But I'm in this lifestyle and I always enjoyed it. I'm almost 50, kid from Chicago. I used to travel that city. You know, I was born at a certain time where they used to let kids run the streets all day, every day. We would walk to the playground, especially in cities like Chicago. We would walk to the playground, however old you are. If you older than 5, you're going to walk to the playground. If you're about 5 or something, you're going to be walking there with older cousins and siblings, and they're going to literally take you by the hand and walk you the mile or two to your closest you're a mile or less to your closest playground, maybe 2 or less miles to your closest playground. And y'all will play there all day until it was just before dark and go home. You might go home for lunch, but you don't go home a lot. And that's how it was for all kids of all races in the city of Chicago. Now, the city of Chicago, demographically speaking, it's always been about 1/3 Caucasian, about 1/3 black, and about 1/3 Hispanic. Now, when I was a kid, it was the Hispanics were probably about 25%. Blacks were probably about 30, 35%. And then whites made up the rest, and they were the majority. Not quite the more than 50% majority, but they were the minority majority. So, and we all play with each other at the parks. And segregation, you've heard about Chicago segregation. It is what it is. The park my black butt was walking to was going to be the black park. But in my case, that's the first park I'm going to because I love to explore and adventure. I was that type of kid. Go to the train station, go from train station to train station. I have never panhandled as an adult, but I probably panhandled as a kid. And also, I didn't just panhandle, I used to like hustle as a kid. Can I help you with that? I didn't exactly shine shoes, but kind of sort of like that. I used to offer to go for people or be like a tour guide. Hey, welcome to Chicago, man. Can I help you? Can I help you find something? When you go to the train stations, you see little maps and little setups, and there's free little booklets. And a lot of times, as a kid, one of my hustles, I wouldn't ask for money or anything like that, but I would just talk to people and just be like, "You look like you ain't from Chicago. Are you lost? You want some directions? I give you some directions. I know the city, you know." And even if I didn't know the city, like as far as I didn't know how to get there, I've never been there before. I knew how to read the maps perfectly, and I could give people a quick little tutorial on how to read the maps. And imagine that you're from Chicago and some 8-year-old is teaching you how to read the CTA, the Chicago Transit Authority. You at the train station, the public trains. You go take the subway, and that was a tourist. Anybody visit Chicago back in those days, oh, we got to take the subway. And you meet a little kid like me, I'm gonna let you know, I get it. I'm a sharp kid. I get it. I can look at you. I can know what you're about. I can tell you where to, you look like you want to go to the museums. You look like you want to go to the lake. You want to look like you want to go to Navy Pier. You look like blah blah blah. Because I'm a kid that goes out every day and plays with strangers and talks to lots of strangers every day. So again, I'm a different species of human being than anything that most people can imagine, because they don't even make children anything like what they used to make the years that I was born. I was born in the late 70s. The sociologists have a new term for us called zennials. Look it up when you get a chance. I'll probably do something on my channel about it. But we'll fast forward to that little sidebar to help you understand what I'm about to say is for real. So I've worked at HVAC. So while I was in prison, that brain, that kid that used to talk to all these strangers about everything, and I gravitated towards men. My father's situation was weird. My earliest memories, I have my stepfather. My mother married when I was a baby. Somebody fell in love with my mother, fell in love with me, adopted me, didn't change my name or nothing, but basically I thought that was my father. And he was a powerful guy in our community. Notorious guy. I'm sure I'll do a video on him eventually if I get some subscribers. But a notorious Chicago figure. But this was my stepfather, and he was very smart. He forced education on me. I was problematic. I was special education, so they was on top of it, and they worked on me. And the schools grabbed hold of it, and the schools worked with it a lot. I got schools, if they could get me to operate academically at my highest potential, I can make sure that the school that I'm going to, that their levels for funding is higher. So even though I was quite problematic in some areas, I'm more than paid off for it in the academic level, that, you know, I'm not getting kicked out short of me doing something very serious. And they're going to make certain accommodations for me and my education and my evaluation. And plus, some of these things that they're evaluating me for is profitable. I don't know at the time they're asking me all these questions and stuff like that, studying me like a lab rat. My mom don't really know about a lot of this. She knows about it, but she's not there. She don't see the day to day, and she don't ask. And I wouldn't even. But anyway, so this is the brain that's in there studying HVAC. And by this time, I had already read the Bible cover to cover when I was 18/19. Then I got a hold of it in the same time, like right before I went to school for this HVAC. I got a hold of a psychology textbook, Psychology 101, for a freshman student who's going to be a psychology major at a college. It's a college textbook. It's very thick. It's going to be harder to read than the Bible was to read. And I didn't even just read a normal Bible. I read a study Bible with the extra books. So the average Bible has 66 books. The Bible that I read cover to cover had like 74 books. Um, and that was at 19. And I kept reading. But anyway, right before I did HVAC, I'm studying the psychology stuff and just talking to people all day. And this is what I do. I don't have the internet. I don't swipe and doom scroll all day. This is what I do. Talk to other inmates, and I read academic books, because also at HVAC, they have an academic book, HVAC, the complete guide to educating somebody on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And I plan on reading this cover to cover. I didn't quite make it, but I did quite a lot. And I didn't quite make it because I'm in the class. So I have to I have to read it the way my professor does. And not professor, he's a retired HVAC dude, but basically he's my professor. He's a guy who was a technician for like 30, 40 years, 50 years. He was an old dude. He had done it for a long time. And it's Texas. You know what I'm saying? Them old dudes, some old cowboys don't stop until they stop. But anyway, when he found out that I was reading it cover to cover, I had only made it probably like not quite a third through. And this was a thick study book. If you guys have ever seen a trade book for like a trade, when they're teaching the guy a trade, those books are thick and dense, very expensive. Those books are expensive. Those books are like $200 a piece, even back then. Probably more now, I guess. Jesus, I could only imagine if textbooks like that would cost more. But anyway, what was we in the story? I make videos this long, and we're talking about some global solutions. And if America don't run with this idea, hopefully somebody does. I don't get a lot of views on my videos, but throughout history, historically, this video, I've had this channel to be 20 years. December would be the 20th anniversary of this channel, or November. But either way, go. Um, all these years, I make videos that never really go viral. Not on this channel. I've had other channels and I've had videos go viral. Not on this channel. I've never had a video go viral on this channel. No virals. No, I don't think I have any videos with thousands of views on this channel because I just have so many videos. But the videos I make, other people, they always snowball. They always snowball. Other content creators see my videos, I educate somebody, and they run with it. And this is a great one to run with. How to cure the world. Global warming solution for real. So I studied HVAC stuff. But also, there's this novel I write in my head. And boy, somebody should give me $1 million to buy the rights to this novel called Mind of a Maniac. In Mind of a Maniac is about a character named Zachary Fontaine, Zach. And this guy, if somebody wrote this book already, they stole the idea because I came up with this idea probably right about 20 years ago. Right about 20 years ago. But Zachary Fontaine, he gets locked up. It's crazy how he gets there. But while he's in prison, something happens to him. Some mental stuff happens and something happens and he becomes like, anyway, he starts to come, his brain becomes crazy. And he gets, I can't ruin the story because I might write this book someday, but he gets obsessed with electricity and the idea of solar farms. Now, I came up with this idea before I really knew about, I don't think anybody really had solar farms 20 years ago, but Zachary Fontaine got obsessed with solar farms. Now, he's locked up, but he's obsessed with it and he ends up, I can't ruin it, but he starts to get to experiment with solar farms and solar panels. And so I've been thinking about these ideas for days and ways of making these crazy efficient homes. Now, both of these ideas have since, and I've talked about, I used to tell inmates in the prison used to want to sit every now and then. They'd be like, hey, man, tell us that story, that book that you wrote, man, Mind of a Maniac. And I would tell inmates for about 2 hours, I would tell people my story from beginning to end. And the inmates would sit around and be like, what the fuck? Because it's a whole story. It's a trilogy at this point. Those inmates helped me write this story with my imagination. And this was like 20 years ago. So this book has been living and growing, and it's a living book inside my brain called Mind of a Maniac. But this guy becomes basically like a prison scientist. Like you've heard of a prison lawyer. Well, this guy, Zachary, is a prison scientist obsessed with a lot of sciences. Almost kind of like me in real life if you ever look at some of my YouTube channel. But, man, I got some stuff written down in this truck. Like, I got some crazy writings. Like, for real. I got some crazy writings, man. Damn. That remind me, I got to make arrangements. I got to protect my writings at all costs. But because some of my writings are extensions on Einstein. When I be reading Einstein, I start writing. I'd always write notes when I was studying and reading these academic things. So I got notes, crazy notes in here. Some notes on, like, anyway, these ain't even my notes. These are my thoughts on. So Donald Trump just ended this thing where they was making electronic vehicles, which is good. I'm a trucker. Let's not get rid of diesel engines just yet. That's one place I disagree with the. See, I'm not an environmentalist, but I do agree with them. They're right scientifically about some things, but how do they go about it? It's not the right way. We still have to be productive in the time being. To get rid of something like diesel trucks would be absolutely ridiculous. Yes, they are monsters when it comes to fossil fuels. Destroying the ozone, not the ozone no more. We're just destroying the air that we breathe. This something lower, something much lower, closer to what we breathe by pumping out these fuels, these exact exhaust fumes. Like a lot of truckers I see now, I'm still, I don't drive trucks at the moment, but I'm still a trucker and I'm still in that loop. And I still a percentage of the films, stuff that I consume is going to be from the trucker world. And I know that the other truckers are talking about DEF. They want to get rid of DEF. DEF, I know you guys have always been talking about DEI. If I was talking about that, you know what I was talking about. But DEF, diesel is exhaust fuel. Diesel exhaust fuel. So on modern trucks, there's a box on these trucks that keeps the reason we don't see black smokes, the reason that some cities like Los Angeles, for instance, 20, 30 years ago, Los Angeles was a smoggy motherfucking city. It's still pretty smoggy. They got so many vehicles on the road. But 20, 30 years ago, the skies over, and it got bad in San Antonio at one point too. I think it's much better now. But DEF on these big trucks, the big rigs, there has to be something that catches the exhaust fumes and basically filters that out. It doesn't let out black smoke all day. So there's not a cloud of black smoke over cities 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is rush hour. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is rush hour. That's when the cities are alive with economic. People are acting like we're doing our human thing, like the birds and the bees do their thing, spreading pollen around. Well, humans do their thing, changing the earth, fighting the earth, changing the earth, molding the earth. Their thing, their capitalist thing, or wherever they live, whatever they do. So 9 to 5, we run it. So it's just countless. Every city that's out there is just countless vehicles out there, exhausting smoke, making it hotter wherever you are. They're not just exhausting smoke; they're burning energy, and that energy produces heat, and it makes your city hotter by quite a few degrees every day. We might talk scientifically on one of the podcasts about it with the AI, but for now, I'm already taking for long just to set this up. So how can we spit this out? Let's spit it out. So we can't get rid of diesel exhaust fumes. That's what a lot of truckers are about to ask the Trump administration for. And the Trump administration has been gutting the EPA. I could see them doing it. I didn't know what they was going to announce today. I didn't even know it was going to be so environmental. They just pushed back these environmental things, and I don't really know much about it, what they did. It's not a field I was really looking into. So they might be blindsiding a lot of people, because if I'm not looking into it, a lot of people ain't looking into it. Anyway, so diesel exhaust, DEF is important. You truckers need to stop saying that. You truckers need to stop saying that. Oh, these damn DEFs it's extra work. Truckers don't want to do it. Truckers hate doing it. And what happens is a lot of truckers are talking about there's all these mechanical problems with DEFs. There's only mechanical problems if you don't run it properly. Every time you get fuel, get DEF. Every time you get fuel, get DEF. You got to keep that stuff running. It just is what it is. Do your job. If truckers are stepping up like HVAC technicians stepped it up. And so let's get back to that. I'm in an HVAC class and I'm learning about CFCs. And the main thing they need to do, they explain all of this stuff to us before we get into it. Okay, so there's a government program, Project Rio, reintegration of offenders. We're going to train you guys to do something that we have a work shortage of. And hopefully, this is what the Trump administration is setting things up for in 2025. Of course, I don't have time to read 2025 because 2025 is all those books I mentioned that I just read. Stack those on top of each other. Every book that I mentioned that I just read over 20, 30 years. We're going on 30 years, the anniversary of the first time I went to adults jail. Anyway, 2025 is a book this big. Who knows how dense it is? I haven't gotten anywhere near it, but from the people that get their hands on it and study it, seems to be a big book for people who are nerds that consume books like you people should be consuming water, but you don't. You consume soda. Anyway, back to what we were saying about the global market. So we're losing all these jobs right now. It's bad. The MAGA people are mad. The MAGA people are about to turn on the Trump administration. Make my first prediction on this channel, man. Texas is gonna turn purple, politically speaking. But um, economics bad. We're going to need jobs, and we're not going to get the jobs that Trump has been talking about or mentioning. So now we need environmental jobs. Trump needs to throw them people a bone. He's pissed off the Democrats. He's literally killed Democrats. So throw the Democrats a bone, and this will be one. We're going to help clean up the ozone layer and the smog and all this other stuff. We're going to pay attention to some environmental issues. Give the Democrats the environmental issues, and you have to, because you just went so far. I remember when Trump won that first election. That's what I was remembering. I watched the skies over San Antonio turn dark. immediately because it affected San Antonio more than the average city because San Antonio was like at the peak of its growth. So all of the work, all of those construction machines, and they was let it rip, full steam ahead. And even don't worry about the pollution, don't worry about the air pollution or nothing. The sky's just, and I'm somebody that watches the sky. And I end up becoming a night driver, so I watch the night sky. Not counting stars or anything like that. Not really, not paying attention. I read what I read, but I read everything. But I watch the moon. I like watching the cycles of the moon. I'm addicted to it. I've seen so many eclipses in my life. But anyway, and that's important to know too to fix this environmental stuff. We got to start using all of the energy that we can, the rotation of the earth, knowing all of that stuff, minimizing stuff, being super efficient. Efficiency needs to step up. Don't become wasteful. That's what they're going to want to do. They want to go and be super wasteful as they let it rip with the economy. Hey, you big guys, do whatever you want, build whatever you want. You just pay us money, throw us money, and you can do it. Give it a try, give it a try, give it a try. They literally got Elon Musk launching rockets whenever he wants to, right here, not far from here. But anyway, what you need to do is change the economy, the jobs that we're going to need, and this can help cure some stuff as far as the ecologically, the earth, maybe even fix global warming if we catch some of this heat that I'm talking about. And the way we burn fossil fuels, that is so heat productive. And a lot of that heat is waste, waste, waste. And you got to catch the waste. You're going to have to catch the waste. You can't just release the waste. People going to be, it's going to cause death and sickness immediately if you just let it rip with smog and cancer causing pollutants in the air. Robert F. Kennedy, from one messed up voice dude to another messed up voice dude that knows some stuff about some stuff. Talk to him, man. Talk to him. You used to be an environmentalist, dude. Wake up, smell the coffee, smack yourself, man. It's time, you know. Can't sleepwalk into oblivion. But anyway, here's an idea. And now that I mentioned R.F. Kennedy, if he could hear something like this. So HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You train these people. I'm gonna pause this for a second. I'm gonna take a break, drink some water, and I'm gonna get this ready to really spit out the earth changing thing. So I figured I'm gonna do this in 3 different stages. We're gonna talk about the green jobs and the green job movement. And Trump, you want to be remembered for being great, and you messing up. This might save you if you could do this green jobs thing. Number one, the rainforest. I was listening to this rainforest guy the other day, and they're tearing down the rainforest in the Amazon. It's been a problem for a real long time. Now, we could solve so many problems if we started making walls of trees. Tree walls. Tree walls. Still need tree walls from how we cured the Dust Bowl. Johnny Appleseed. Build walls of trees all over the place. These things gonna produce oxygen, which will let you get away with the polluting a little bit more, getting a little bit more, not polluting, but getting a little bit more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, a little bit more. But these tree walls, they're producing oxygen all day. Boom, 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 boom. Plus, you got people to plant these trees and nurture these trees. These are all these jobs. And these trees pay for themselves. That's wood. And they also pay for themselves by restoring dirt, wood, and retaining water. Things that we are all super problematic. So many problems right there, especially like here in Texas. You know what I'm saying? We need to plant some trees in Texas for real. This is why we're losing so much water. They didn't cut down all these trees for agriculture and business purposes and all this other type of stuff, clearing land and everything and using the wood for stuff. And just traditionally speaking, so many people still survive off of burning wood, chopping and burning wood every single day. And a lot of this stuff don't get replenished. Anyway, those jobs, lots of jobs in planting trees and figuring out, the whole Army Corps of Engineers. They figure out how to build these walls. These walls can save all kind of things. Uh, Restore the swamps in Louisiana and stuff like that. These walls, hurricane walls in Florida, miles of trees, forest basically, man-made forest. In Chicago, we have our beaches, and they did this 100 years ago. They made more than that, actually. I don't know when they made the man-made beaches. Hey, Siri, when were the man-made beaches of Chicago originally made?
Chicago's first public beach opened in 1895 at Lincoln Park. Today, the entire 28 miles, 45 kilometers, Chicago lakefront shoreline is man-made and primarily used as parkland. This is from WTTW.com and partishopmain.com.
So the sand in 1895 was imported as well, all the way back then? Can't do the follow-up questions anymore. Hey Siri, all the way back in 1895, when the first man-made beaches appeared in Chicago, did they import the sand all the way back then?
Chicago's first public beach opened in 1895 at Lincoln Park. Prior to that, beaches were owned by hotels, clubs, and other private enterprises, and typically frequented by wealthy, upper-class residents. This is from WTTW.com.
We'll have to look that up on another show. But if we could have man-made beaches in 1895, you can make forests, especially if we're talking about the government. Back then, it was just the city of Chicago. If the city of Chicago could do that by itself in 1895, the city that you're trashing all the time, you call us trash, geez, and we're the evolved people of them. And we are evolved from those people. We're not devolved from those people. Chicago's not devolved like you said it is. There's certain neighborhoods that deal with a lot of crime and poverty, and those are the neighborhoods you want to focus on for some reason, Mr. Media, all the media people. We have wonderful museums and other things that have never been a problem. They've always been open. You don't want to go there. You don't want to check out our museum districts, our shed aquariums, our wonderful zoos. So much art and culture. Of course, our architecture is world renowned, probably the best in the world. Large sculptures, skyscrapers. Our skyscrapers are world-changing works of arts. Chicago Fair was back then. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. What year was the Chicago Fair? The first one.
The World's Columbian Exposition was held in Chicago in 1893. This answer is from Britannica.
1893. 133 or 131 years ago. Something like that, 130 something years ago. But anyway, we did it all the way back then as Americans. Went to the moon a generation ago. We can make these walls. And Trump is pulling all these strings, pulling off this other crap. Make the man-made walls. That'll solve so many problems. Energy problems, all kind of things. Solar farms as well. Solar farms in the desert. It makes sense. We're already rebuilding these roads. Have some solar panels that plug the grid in out there and create the new grid, the solar power grid. I'm too old to be hoarding all my ideas. This is $1 billion idea, really $1 trillion idea. And the United States could pull this off. You know, I don't like Hitler at all. F Hitler, screw Hitler. But when he first got elected, what made him really popular is all the jobs he brought there. And some of these jobs, a lot of the jobs were similar to that. They were agricultural jobs, and our children need nothing more than to be outdoors. Swinging Aggies. Aggies are these poles with really long hoe heads for farm work and agricultural work. And these kids don't know how to do nothing with it. They don't know how to move their bodies. They think they can run around and jump everything because they've been playing video games. And there are all these viral videos, these young guys, and not viral videos, I'm a drive for a living, I see it sometimes. These young guys start fights with grown-ups, and they'll smack them a few times, and the grown-up will be like, bonk, what's wrong with you, kid? And these kids are not active enough. This to solve that problem too. As far as our young men, these young men are going stir crazy, and they're so problematic, and they're so aggressive, and they're so problematic. I'm not gonna say anything. I spoke so well on this video. I'm not gonna say anything to get. I want to get monetized one of these days, and this might be the video for that. So there we go. We got solution number one: the tree walls. And you could tie that in with the solar panels. All of this thing, this is energy production I'm talking about. Solar walls, dams, ideas like this. Get educated people, guys who actually went to college and graduated. Not just guys like myself, ex-convicts, but I've done the work. So I've worked out there in all these fields, and then I've worked in other energy fields. Anyway, oil. What was it? Water. I need to, next time I tackle this idea, let me see. I'm gonna pause it a second because I don't even think that was the grand idea. I know I was talking about HVAC, and HVAC is much more complex. Um, but jobs like this, energy jobs that are related to the environment. Hold on a second. I gotta pause this for a second. I gotta give me 1 second. I almost missed it. I remember the grand idea. I was talking about. I almost forgot this. I was talking about how they fixed the hole in the ozone layer. Project Rio, the real energy that's seeping out of there. The one thing that's killing energy, one thing that kills energy, the one thing that kills energy, and the one thing that we've pretty much mastered these days. A lot of people don't think about this, but insulation. Insulation. You have the insulation around stuff. You think about the rim, the little strip of like rubber magnets around your refrigerator that doesn't let a crack of air come out. Tries not to let an ounce of temperature. You got to save your fuel. Wasted fuel, waste fuel. That's the biggest waste of fuel. Seriously, when you could cut your burn rate down, you're burning half the amount of fuel. You're burning half of that. You're burning half of that. You're burning half of that. When things move exponentially, they move exponentially. And we're about to talk about the wasted energy, one real wasted resource, one thing that's destroying America, one thing that's been destroying America. And we're talking about prison reform, the wasted inmates. The inmates just sitting there, not doing nothing, sitting there, atrophying. The word atrophy, we'll do a definition real quick. The word atrophy, that's when something withers away, when you don't use it. Let's say, for instance, you just taped your head to your head, and that's how you walked around for 3 or 4 years. When you untaped your head, your arm would just hang down and it wouldn't move. And it would take you a long time and a lot of therapy to be able to learn to move that arm again. Atrophy, not using something. And that's what happens with our inmates. They sit in prison, sit in prison, sit in prison, not able to do nothing, not able to learn nothing. Even if they're bookworm nerds, they don't get to apply any of this knowledge. They don't get to really learn it. They don't get to put their hands on it and stuff. So we could put our inmates to work manufacturing. Prisons can become manufacturing centers. You just got to pay the inmates. It's the future. In Texas, they still don't pay their inmates. To pull that off, you need to pay the inmates. You can't just have slaves no more. No more slaves. And this way you can end slavery. Trump could write some bill into effect that would affect Texas. Hey, Texas, pay your inmates and get them ready to work. Most inmates in Texas are forced to work right now anyway. And this is true across the country. Inmates are forced to work. Now, they do have the option. You could buck and just not work, and then they throw you some weird places like what I did most of the time. But I was also medicated. They couldn't have me working with anything. I couldn't work with Aggie in prison because I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and they couldn't give me an Aggie. I might swing it at everybody. I might I probably get a few before you could get me. Pow! If I really snap and go off the edge like that. But I ain't gonna snap and go off the edge like that. Come on, man, listen to me. I'm very intelligent, articulate myself. But again, I was listening to Obama, and I got this idea. And we can use the inmates not just for that. We got to educate them. Project Rio. What are these guys supposed to do when they get out? Lately, I've been seeing them release more and more guys out of prison, and a lot of these guys are mental. There's a mental problem with these guys. It might just be the drugs that they're doing. I know it's a lot of crystal meth out there, and a lot of this crystal meth is being mixed with heroin type stuff, and it's not even real heroin. It's fentanyl, and guys are killing themselves out there, which is a horrible thing, and they like to shoot it anyway. Just don't do drugs, especially those drugs. Also, everything, the weed is so strong. Milder weed would be better. That's probably one reason. That's one thing I kind of like about Texas. There's no more CBD around here. It's still, you can feel it, but it's more CBD. And it's more like Reggie from the old days. The stuff in the states where it's legal is a little bit too strong for everyday consumption. You smoke up your brain. You can't think about grand ideas like this. So we train the inmates, and you can always change the system. Once you get the system set up that you're building the workforce, because that's the thing that's always been America's problem. The workforce was missing. Everybody's mad at the immigrants now, but the immigrants kept coming because there was jobs that Americans didn't want to work. And these were good jobs. Americans have become really lazy. You have to evolve or dissolve. You have to keep working. You have to keep moving. I mentioned earlier that I'm almost 50. I'm in very good shape and I can work. You can give me a hammer and I could swing it for 8 hours a day. Ain't nothing for me. 10, 12, 13 hours a day ain't nothing for a guy like me. And some of those construction days, we'll work sun up to sundown. And in San Antonio, we will have long days. But anyway, you build this workforce. You let them get some hands-on training, and you keep training them. That's another thing. These programs are interchangeable. Once you set up a classroom and you teach for like 10 trades, say for instance you teach for truck driving, HVAC, nursing, RNs, registered nurses, CNAs, which we need a lot of, and other things in the nursing fields. Um, like the billing type of people, phlebotomists. They're guys with certain crimes. They're not violent offenders like I was. You could train them to do the non blue collar hammer outside type of work. Loud work, the dirty work. I end up doing it. I end up loving it. But anyway, you could. There's guys in there for white collar crimes and guys in there for crazy crimes. Man, I know a guy who was in there for stealing his own stuff back from an ex girlfriend. Kicked him out and replaced him with a new boyfriend. He was a teenager too, and he came back with a gun, and he got a lot of time. He like he was like 17 when this happened. He shot a gun in the air, and he got like 19 years in San Antonio. It was about 30 years ago. Well, no, that was about 20, 29 years ago, about when he got sentenced. But anyway, let's see here in the story and in this educational process, we already taught them about the inmates need to be trained on these programs. And I mentioned a whole bunch of programs. You could think for yourself: the oil industry, dirty jobs, all these immigrants that got sent out of the country. You think you're going to replace them with us Americans? Well, we are Americans, and inmates are Americans, and prisons are prisons to really just house people for a short amount of time. Most inmates are only going to serve somewhere between 5 and 15 years, and if they're just sitting there doing nothing, what the hell are they going to do when they get out? At the best, collect welfare in a room somewhere so they don't hurt nobody. But anyway, you train them to work and you have them do the work, and work is addictive and it's healthy. When you work like I work, again, look at me, man. Not to brag or anything like that, but I'm in good shape and I've been talking all this time, and I could throw on these shoes and I could go run around and not sweat too much, especially on a day like today. It ain't super hot. It's February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, YouTube. Anyway, yeah, I don't normally celebrate holidays. I don't celebrate holidays, especially those your pagan holidays. You know, Freud was a Jew. Einstein was a Jew. You guys need to chill out with all of this Hitler talk, man. Um, the greatest minds, some of the greatest minds that helped us change anything were from Judaism. It's the practices, people. There's a lot of math in the Bible, and these kids grow up reading it. They read the Bible by the time they're 13, and then they get some great studious jobs, doctors and engineers and stuff like that. But anyway, there's so many jobs in the future that people just can't do, and people are so non-functional these days. These big video game kids been laying around, sitting around, not playing, and these inmates could teach them. You think about the Scared Straight program, which I think it's stupid. I don't support that program, but look at how influential those inmates are around the kids. Those kids that don't listen to nobody listen to those kids, listen to those inmates. Um, And I'm not saying just let the inmates run loose with everybody, man. Look, it's February 14th, 2026. Let's not forget who's really in the news, Epstein. We don't want anything happening like that. So you need a lot of guardrails. So whatever next administration gets in there, we got to set guardrails. Everything in life is a gift and a curse, and Donald Trump is the greatest gift and curse America's seen if we play our cards right. And we need you to be our greatest gift and our curse, Trump. You've been talking about your own mortality and your own death a lot lately, and you've been talking about heaven. The only way to get there is to repent, and repent means to ask for forgiveness and turn away from your foolish ways, your sins. and you can still protect us and let the military people make their decisions. Really set up the military people who know, really smart generals who got a lot of miles underneath them. That's who needs to be setting the military policy. And you get your hands off of that, Mr. Trump. You a little seniorly now. Go sit yourself somewhere and set your sleep schedule. That's what somebody needs to get on Trump the most. Set your sleep schedule. Sir, be prepared to be wide awake between 9 and 5, please. Sir, please be prepared to be awake between 9 and 5, sir. Be clear headed and alert for your decisions. And I think those two are enough for now. I talked about the walls of trees, and I also mentioned the solar panels. Both of those, and incorporating the solar panel, you got those work crews out there. You have all that stuff dig out as you're building these roads. That's one thing that makes me so mad as a trucker and a person that does Uber all day. I travel so many miles every year, and they've changed all these programs. They both, Biden had to build better, whatever program, build back better program, and they were building all these roads, and those programs are still going, and these people are building all these roads. And I just think, like, it makes me upset. These roads are the same roads they built 30 years ago. They haven't modernized, and they're not even building them more efficiently, man. Let's get some ideas in here. Let's use AI for something, man. Come on, man. Big brains, work on that. And the AI just upgraded right now. It's frozen. It's kind of paused. It's kind of going through some things. These internet laws are really affecting the brain here in Texas of AI. So, also other things that I'm not going to mention right now. Thanks for watching. If you watched this whole program, and hey, I almost kept it an hour, but this is $1 billion idea, $1 trillion idea. Hopefully, I'm not just shouting in the wind, and this video gets more than 36 views. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you.